Kia ora, g'day. Welcome back once again. Here this time with part 3 of my reaction to Mr. Brad Geary, former Navy SEAL commander, on the Resilience Show, talking about the truth about buds and moral courage. So let's jump back in.
I mean, like I said, I've never been at CAG, but
Yeah.
I don't know any other place that I've been exposed to that has that level of
Yeah.
expertise, capability, resources. I mean,
It's amazing.
Even one time I was down there and they were doing a motorcycle course.
Yeah.
And they had Jeremy McGrath.
Yeah.
At the time was like the world motocross champion down there. Like, it's like,
oh yeah, it's funny, man. You joked at the beginning, like we won't say it by the other name. The secret's out. Everyone knows who they are. So there's some name brand advantages there to being there too, because people like that want to be a part of it. And so when someone from that command calls you, if you're the world expert in fill in the blank, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, we're exploring this new capability. We'd love to learn from you because you're the best, whatever, motorcycle rider or big wave surfer, in a jet ski or something. And we need to learn that, what you've learned. They love to help there. And so we end up, that command ends up getting a lot of world-class experts to just help out, which is super fun.
Man, that's awesome to hear that's the sort of stuff that happens. Not surprising, but pretty cool to hear it from a former commander in that space, and acknowledging the openness and the willingness to explore other areas, extreme, so motorcycling or whatever it's called, motocross, and learning from those people to develop those skills and that capability, which, yeah, it's a good space, or good plan and a good approach, I think, getting into that space. Big wave jet skiing, it's another awesome piece of the puzzle with regards to what they do. Man, starts to get right now, just causes me to start thinking about a whole bunch of other things, whereby, I wonder if the unit or the units around the world look at other similar things, or maybe seemingly or things that may not seem so obvious but could have potential impact. I guess one that comes to mind is probably the CIA. That's probably stuff that they do, and maybe the MI6 units of the world or organizations. I don't know about the tier ones, but clearly they do some of that in the US, which is, yeah, it's pretty awesome to hear.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
It's pretty amazing.
When everybody wants to hear, me included, is there within your ability to talk about it, is there an operation that you could share that just kind of highlights how amazing the men you led?
I've talked a little bit about it's not even that. I think what's so amazing is the creative problem solving that I've seen at that command, and this idea to go against conventional norms, to think through creative solutions to problems, and their willingness to say no if, hey man, this exceeds our risk threshold, or
so important.
Yeah, dude. Wyman Howard used to say it so well. I love this. He was the Dev Group commander once, and then he was our admiral. And he used to say, if you can't say no, your yes means nothing. And I was like, daggum, I like that. And that's one thing that place is really good at. And I've talked about that in some other forums. So that's more.
Makes a lot of sense, that if you can't say no, your yes means nothing. Really.
More than just their tactical expertise, that's the stuff that impressed me the most, was the professionalism to be able to say no, or not yet, or we need to develop that capability before we get to yes. The operations themselves, mirroring what those guys said about the UBL rate, half the time you're like, okay.
Just listening to him, though, and thinking about that comment as I listen to him speak more, if you can't say no, your yes means nothing, makes a lot of sense with regards to the mindset and the approach. And with regards to, if I look at the SAS as an example, with the who dares wins motto, people will look at that and think that operators within the regiment say yes to everything. Sometimes you might find yourself saying yes, and then which I think is common also in the outside of the military, just say yes and figure it out later, figure out how to do it later. There could possibly be some of that, but more often than not, it's an understanding of the capability of which the individuals and the team and the organization has at that time, whether due to equipment and resources, manpower, etc., technology, all that sort of stuff, and acknowledging and going, yep. More than likely, it's typically a case of we're not ready for that yet, or we need to develop that capability to be able to do that and put it all together, or we can do ABC of this particular task, but XYZ is still unknown, and we need time to develop and get to a stage whereby we think we can bring those things together to go from A to Z. So yeah, it's cool, and bang on listening to former Commander Gary here speak about that.
I mean, it's so smooth because your guys know what they're doing, and they're so creative. They don't let themselves get forced into a scenario that's going to put their life at risk. Sometimes, like obviously they take risks, serious risks. Yeah. But it's stuff I wish I can't get into details because it'd be like, well, you're exposing a TTP. But it's like, whereas someone else would be like, well, I guess that bad guy's in that room. We got to go through that door. Do you? Mm-hmm. Or are there other solutions? What are some other options we might have? Let's take a tactical pause. Let's take a knee outside the target. We got all the time in the world right now. Let's solve this problem. Do we have a dog? Do we have robotics? Mm-hmm. Do we have demo? What do we have? What other tools do we have that we can maneuver against this and not get forced ourselves into this like fatal funnel of going through the door and getting shot at, where that enemy is going to pretty much hit who he shoots at. So that is what blew my mind the most, was just, and it never ceased to amaze me.
That's experience that does that, right?
It really is.
I remember back in 2004, if there was a bad guy in a room, they're blowing the door, they're going in the room and getting in a gunfight. But then after a few years, it was like, why don't we just call them out?
And that became, right. And that became a tactic, right? They're like, and it's funny because in war, it's so high stress. It's so intense. These novel ideas, which sometimes like some guy will think of something and everyone looks around like, how come we didn't think of that sooner? Exactly. Like, we've been doing this for a long time. It's hard to put yourself in the shoes of a warfighter and realize that, hey man, when bullets are flying, like, your brain doesn't have a lot of free space to go through creative thought processes here. It's very
it's a lizard brain.
It really
Whatever
is.
You input in your limbic system in training, it's going to happen.
That's right. You default to let me get on my gun and run toward that. And so the discipline and the maturity to do I have to run in there right now, or can we wait a few minutes? What's my decision space right now? That's what blew me away. And that only comes with maturity. It only comes with experience. And it comes with, unfortunately, a lot of Purple Hearts, because that's how we learn these things in war. Like, why did we do it that way? That dude didn't have to get shot up. We could have done it this way and that wouldn't have happened. Let's start doing it that way, or at least try it, see what happens.
I like the logic and the thought process around there. And I think, the same could be said for our leaders around the world, right? Who, instead of, who could prevent these types of situations happening in the first place. Don't get me wrong. There's always going to be people that are willing and ready to put up their hand to say, here I am, send me, I'll go to war. There's always going to be those people that are willing to do that, because us in the human race just being the way it is, and our history speaks for itself, like, we end up going to war and fighting, and that leads to loss of life and casualties and all that sort of stuff. So, but just building on what Brad here is talking about with regards to taking a tactical pause, thinking about, do I have to go through that? It would be great, if the leaders around the world applied that same sort of logic. And I'm guessing they do. I'd like to think that they do, and that they're very mindful before they, push the button, so to speak, to say we're going to war with these people. But man, it just, I don't know, it doesn't seem like that, and it probably doesn't feel like that. And our history, if we go back and have a look at it in terms of humanity and the wars and things that have taken place, we probably don't have a strong record to show that, we have been restrained or reserved as leaders before saying let's go to war and start blowing each other up and killing people. So yeah, the same sort of approach, I guess, is what I'm getting at, as what Mr. Geary is talking about here. It would be excellent if the same sort of methods, logic was applied in those upper echelons within the leaderships around the place. And I'm guessing, that's why you have your defense or war secretaries, whatever they want to be referred to as these days, why you have your leaders that have the ultimate say and final decision, and then the other advisors and other senior key positions within for those countries. But we're still not getting it right.
I saw with them a very a willingness to experiment on the battlefield, which was fun. And it's fun to be a part of. And you see a very quick evolution. But you said experience. It's not just experience. It's experience coupled with autonomy. It's dudes feeling like they have the autonomy to try that.
Which is very unique at that command.
Very unique. I mean, I remember one guy, we had these old systems. You remember, it was like inside the vehicles, laptops with wires and cables and antennas hooked to comms and batteries. And it was this monstrosity of just junk just to get a laptop with your nav plan up on it, with real-time movement, in a sense, what we do now on our iPhones, right? Mm-hmm. You pull up Apple Maps or Waze. And this was about the time smartphones and iPads were like really hitting the market. And one of our guys was like, why don't we just mount an iPad into these vehicles and get, the software to put a satellite puck up there and track our stuff? It'd be way easier than all this other stuff we've been doing. Someone's like, well, we can't do that. Well, why? Well, because there's a policy against it. Okay. What if we just get a waiver to the policy? And everyone's like scratching their heads like, I guess we could ask. And so he did. He asked, he pioneered this idea of mounting iPads in vehicles. And all of a sudden
I can only say no. If you're going to put in a request for a waiver, the worst thing that could happen is that they say no.
Cleaned up our entire nav process, all the equipment that can go, bad in an op, into something that was ruggedized, easy to use. And by the way, you get out of the vehicle, you can just pop it right off and you're not leaving anything behind that's could be compromised. That guy ended up getting out and he's now doing that for like motocross events real time now. Like he has his own company. It's incredible. But just the experience coupled with the autonomy to make decisions, to try new things is what I think makes that place great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
the other part that I'd add to that, just based on my observation and experience, is the trust. So that experience, the autonomy and the trust from your teammates, from your leaders, from within, etc. It's a huge part, massive part.
And the development group name.
I mean, it's there. It's right there. The sad part is most of the time there's no reason why other units couldn't have that same autonomy. Mm-hmm. There really is no reason. It's we become, as a military, sometimes it's the largest bureaucracy in the world, so it's understandable.
Right.
But a bureaucracy becomes inundated with policies and procedures. And so over time, those just build on top of each other to where you create this system of like, hey man, allow ourselves to constrain ourselves. Mm-hmm.
Man, I really, sorry to interject again, but I love that comment around I think he mentioned words to the effect of the rest of the Defence Force. There's no reason why they can't give them that same autonomy. There may be, obviously, maybe newer recruits coming in. You might not be so willing to allow that level of autonomy until after a certain period of time, whatever that might be. But it does make me think anyway, the amount of people and the different types of people that come in with their different lived experience up until that point, or even their different perspective of things, even those that may be considered more experienced soldiers who may not be SF, may not be part of an SF unit, but what we could potentially learn and or improve on, which could help SF operations and or conventional operations by having a level of autonomy to help and to encourage, I guess is the word that I'm looking for, to encourage that a little bit more freedom of thought and ideas and exploring those ideas. Obviously, financial constraints and all that sort of stuff will come into it, I would imagine, depending on what those thoughts are. But it's I think there's definitely something to that. What we could potentially be missing out on by not having that autonomy, that type of stuff with regards to your broader defense force. Anyway, hopefully that makes sense.
Start asking questions. Why can't we do it this way? Why can't we do it that way? Well, because there's a policy about it. Okay.
Change the policy.
Yeah. If that's keeping us from being more effective on the battlefield, why are we following that policy? Well, there was a reason years ago. Can anyone articulate it? Well, maybe not, but maybe it's irrelevant today. But good luck finding a commander out there, by the way, having been one twice now, a commanding officer, who's going to cancel a policy. Well, because that's risk. Well, if I cancel a policy,
you're responsible.
I'm responsible. And if something goes wrong and there's a huge investigation and it comes back and they find out that I canceled a policy, well, that policy existed for a reason, Brad, And so what you very rarely see is anyone canceling policies. What you always see is adding more policies. And that becomes entirely restrictive when you start talking about battlefield and the evolution of tactics. I mean, we're seeing right now in Ukraine, the evolution of warfare is on like a 30-day cycle. I've heard from guys who've been there.
What we've seen there is kinetic and ground warfare will never be the same.
Never.
Yeah.
And
you know what would be interesting is just on the back end of, and I've done the reactions to Pete Hegseth's speech to the generals and admirals. What would be interesting to see is he spoke about in that speech, we're going to get rid of ROEs and all that sort of stuff, and sounded like using the experience, initiative, trust, moral judgment, integrity, etc. of the operators, encompassed with all the training that they've received, to make hopefully the right call based on the information, the scenario playing out in front of them at that time. That's what it sounded like to me. He didn't say those exact words, but he spoke about we're going to do away with ROEs or words to that effect. And so listening to Brad speak about this, it's very rare to find them removing policies. Instead, they add more policies, and that becomes, you could understand and or imagine, whether you're military or not, how much more restrictive that would be for the soldiers, people, the boots on the ground trying to do their work. I wonder if it's part of the not defense secretary, the War Secretary, Department of War Secretary, Pete Hegseth. I wonder if it's on his radar or on somebody's radar to meet with maybe that same level or the next level down. I don't know how it would work. Senior leaders to identify what are those policies that are restricting them. What are the policies that are inhibiting our ability to be more effective as warfighters on the ground? What are the things that are hamstringing our boots on the ground troops that cause them to second guess, to have doubts about whether or not they can do something, or even in the pre-deployment build-up training leading up to an operation? What are those things, and how can we look to review those? Can we review those and look to see if they're still relevant? If they are, cool. If they're not, is there an opportunity to update those and cancel the old policy, update with the new instead of bringing in more policies? So just stick with what we have, and or have waivers available that can be put in, submitted in certain situations or in certain cases. I don't know. I think it sounds like something, to me anyway, as a former soldier, not in those leadership echelons by any means, but as a former soldier, it sounds like something that, in my gut, it feels like it could be something that could be helpful to those that are going to be kicking in the doors, to those that are going to be traveling through the streets out in the desert, etc., etc. If they're talking about it, if you can bring all the generals and admirals together, maybe there's an opportunity to have a review of those things, but find out from the actual operators that are doing specific tasks, hey, these are the things that hamstring us a bit. These are the things that cause delays when we're trying to get wheels up and get into country, or these are things that cause delays that once we're in country and we're looking to go out and do this task, that we can't get ABC because of XYZ. So I don't know, to me it just sounds like I'm probably not explaining it well enough, but in my head it sounds like something that could potentially be worth exploring, especially helpful for team commanders, patrol commanders, leaders, etc.
It's on a 30-day learning cycle.
Yeah.
They're evolving that fast. The United States Department of Defense is on a 5-year POM cycle. What that means is if I have a requirement already established, which takes months, and if that requirement is approved and validated, which takes months, then I can start competing for resources for that capability. But if I want to get that funded, that takes about a 5-year cycle of approvals.
When the battlefield is changing everything.
That's what I was just talking about. He's just explained it. So those hurdles, those barriers, like you're taking all these steps right now, like, and I don't mean just America. I'm talking about, other allied nations, UK, Australia, NZ, Canada. I don't know if they're experiencing those same types of constraints. In some countries like New Zealand, we may be limited by our resources and equipment and technology, etc. But man, I'm sure there's a bunch of policies and paperwork, red tape referred to as, that gets in the way and can inhibit and slow down progress. That's just my thought anyway.
30 days.
Yeah, dude, we're irrelevant in that fight unless we can figure out how to evolve faster.
Yeah. When you talk, as soon as you put drones and AI on the battlefield, I mean, I can imagine being, a kinetic force and somebody launches drones and all of their warfighters have something on them that's the drone recognizes, kill everybody, but these guys.
That's right.
It doesn't matter where you're going to hide.
No, dude, there's no hiding.
Yeah, there's no hiding. There's no tactics.
Better. Yeah, it's only getting better.
Yeah. Well, let's shift to Buds. You're commander of Buds, Basic Underwater Demolition School or Training. It's where, for those who don't know, this is if you want to be a Navy SEAL, the doorway is Buds.
That's right.
And
Navy SEAL or SWCC, our Special Warfare Combat Crewmen. That is the pipeline. That is the Navy A school. So you go to boot camp and then you come to us. It's the one-stop shop to become a SEAL or SWCC. That's right.
Now, over the last 20 years, you guys I've seen this in our community, in a Marine Recon community. We built a pipeline. We didn't have it before. It used to be pluck guys out of the fleet. You try it out. Yep. You went to this complete, unofficial HAZE process called RIP, Recon Indoctrination Program.
Yeah.
And then you went to, on to get your MOS later. You'd even operate with, but now war has pushed standardization and a real good pipeline. Now guys right out of boot camp, they go through all this school for a year. They walk out with, jump, dive, free fall.
Yep.
Recon Marines ready to serve. And you guys have done a very tightened pipeline with SQT.
That's right.
For that.
That's right. It's evolved over the years for sure. Back in the day, Buds was really it. And then you'd go to a SEAL team and go on a probationary period through SEAL tactical training, get your trident there. Right around the time I came into the teams, SQT was the new model because they just found hey, well, what's a SEAL at SEAL Team 4 versus SEAL Team 5? There was disparity in what each team thought it meant to qualify someone as a SEAL or a SWCC. So they consolidated all of that back at Buds. At time it was in Special Warfare Center. Anyway, the idea is that now we have consistency. We have a consistent product that we can deliver to the SEAL teams and the boat teams and really to the American people. And so that started right around the time I was going through training. In fact, I was in SQT, but it was still the beta model where they were testing it out. So I was the last class to not get our SEAL tridents out of SQT. I still had to go to my SEAL team and get my bird, which was interesting because I went to SDV school en route, which delayed me. So guys were graduating behind me from the next class, showing up to the SEAL teams with their birds before I even had mine.
Oh, because you went to SQT.
Because I was at the SDV pipeline. That's right.
Yeah.
So me and one other guy finally get up to Virginia Beach to check into our team. And I think we were the last 2 SEALs to ever get our tridents awarded at a SEAL team on the East Coast, which is kind of a cool qual to have.
Yeah.
But frustrating at the time.
Did you guys do something special for it? Or?
Yeah, it was like early spring in Virginia Beach. They made us jump in the water, get wet, break a little bit of ice before you get wet. And then it was funny because the XO was there. I think the CO was on a trip or something. The XO was like, okay, I expect no shenanigans, but I will walk away from this and you do you, gents. And then, of course, they just, blood pinned the birds into us. And then I think we got a keg and celebrated that way for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of same thing with we did the goal weighing thing in recon, and same thing to offshore. Always kind of says the same thing, walks off.
Yeah,
everybody goes nuts.
Yeah,
and it ended up on CNN too. One of the things.
What a shame too. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I was gonna say it is a shame. It's a shame that those are traditions.
Yeah,
and it's all willing participants, by the way.
It is,
and it's something that's celebrate it and
it really is. It's like, it goes back to these policies, right? It goes back to these ideas that someone messed it up for everyone. They put something out. It took it too far, obviously. What they were doing was too far. But then all of a sudden this becomes this big issue. It becomes a political issue. And so it gets shut down for everybody. And so you have a new policy that actually stops something that for the most part was a very healthy cultural thing. And it's a bummer, man. It's a bummer when things like that happen. Yeah. We knee-jerk react so often as a bureaucracy to things that, hey man, if it's done right, you should be able to keep doing this. And let's be honest, most of these guys, I know for a fact, they'll still graduate today and they'll walk over to their favorite instructor, the one that's the hardest dude in the world, that they just want his respect, and like, hey, would you punch it into me? In a room on their own. Just I want you to be the one that punches it in. They're like, Roger that, and they'll do it.
And it has to be done in secret because somebody's getting
right,
which is crazy.
Right. It's but
Well, this training, and one of the things, we got this, every guest, I think I told you, every guest has a custom,
that's awesome,
customized background for the show. And this, I love this picture. One of the things that we're talking about right now is when I came up in special operations, you had to be around 10 years before you got to do anything like this. Now, I went to First Recon Battalion. I had a video of this kid that was, I say kid, man, 20-year-old man who was 20 years old jumping a bundle.
Yeah. It's amazing.
From 20 plus thousand feet.
Oh yeah.
And to have that capability so early on and doing these pipelines, they're able to produce not only a highly trained candidate, but a fully across the board qualified candidate to be deployable.
The operators we're producing today, light years beyond what I was when I graduated the program. Like, the training has evolved and gotten so much better, so much more compressed.
Man, I bet that's the case too. I really admire the generation and the generations that have joined the regiment, the Special Air Service, and same with the American SF equivalents, because I can only imagine how much further advanced they are, how much likely fitter, faster, stronger they are than my generation that went through, or the generation before. There'll always be, maybe not debates, but there'll always be banter around which ones were harder. Yeah, ours was the last of the hard selections, etc. I think I've talked about that on other videos. But man, there's just my observation, having been out of the game for such a long period of time, from what I can see, the advancements in technology and equipment and likely the tactics and training and procedures, all that sort of stuff, how they go about doing things, the resources, obviously AI, which is part of that technology aspect, and likely equipment is just, like he said, I think he said light years ahead of where he was, where I was, and it's, I think that's a good thing. I'd like to think they're not sitting back thinking that they're all squared away. It'd be great to know that there are people within those units or supporting outside, however that works these days, that are constantly looking to how do we improve this? How do we improve that? Improving the night vision capabilities and all that sort of stuff, and the lasers that are used at the night time to improve and make it easier to identify targets and acquire targets, etc. More than likely, there's a whole bunch of things, probably like what you see in the movies, looking at how do we look through the walls of buildings, say the things that he was talking about earlier in terms of warfare, modern warfare, and the changes. Hey, do we have to go charging through that door where we know all the guns are going to be trained on and it may be rigged and booby-trapped with explosives to blow as soon as you go in and take out X number of people as you're going through that funnel of death? Or can we call them out? Do we have equipment that can see through the walls and the structures so that we can identify the threats, how many are in there, hostages, etc.? Just all those types of things, and a whole bunch more. That's just, off the cuff right now. But the advancements, technology, the groups going through that are just far more, I'd say, capable, and that willingness, I think that drive and that mentality is probably still there and still very similar in many ways, for regardless of which generation that goes through. But the adaptability and the technology and the different landscape of warfare these days, etc. There's some clearly some cool stuff that they're doing these days, which just wasn't around during my time.
The science of teaching, of leading, coaching, and mentoring has gotten so much better that we're way more effective at teaching very complex skills in a faster, shorter period of time.
Sorry, I've just seen the time. I'm going to pause this here. Thank you very much. It's just over 30 minutes now. Thank you very much for your time, your support as always. Sincerely appreciated. We'll come back to this. Really enjoying listening to former Commander Brad Geary speak about some of his experiences. I will need to probably get over to the Sean Ryan show because I think he might cover off on some different stuff and that in there. And there might be some stuff in here which is possibly also covered off on the Sean Ryan show, but we'll get to that when I get to it. As always, man, the message is the same, eh? Regardless of your challenges, difficulties, trials that you may be going through, man, just encourage you to keep turning up, keep staying in the fight, put one foot in front of the other and take one day at a time. Be kinder to yourself. Know that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to ask for help as well. Like, get that help if you need to. Find someone or somebodies that you can speak to that are really willing and able to help. And just keep trying. And keep pushing forward as hard and as miserable and as lonely as it may be. My experience has been, if you want things to get better, they can, they do, and they will get better. But you do have to put in the work and you have to be sometimes patient with it as you're going through. Keep trying to stay positive, have good people around you, and just don't quit, don't give up. The sun will shine again. There are better days ahead, and there's always a light at the end of that tunnel. So as always, go always a little further. Remember, who dares wins and who cares wins. And until the next video, there's a big mana wave coming from me to you, filled with my aroha, respect, appreciation, and gratitude for you all.